Hello BookTube. Today I'm talking about Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl. I've talked about Roald Dahl a few times on this channel over the past few years, and in the description down below I'll leave a link to a playlist of the previous books by Roald Dahl that I've reviewed on this channel. Many of those books are books I remember from childhood, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or the BFG, or The Witches, etc. But there are actually a few Roald Dahl books that, for one reason or another, I never read in childhood, and Danny the Champion of the World was on that list. For no particular reason. This book was written in 1975, so this was out when I was a child. It's before my time. But I don't remember any of my elementary school teachers ever talking about it. It was never read to me in elementary school, and I never sought it out myself. There was no real hook to this book, if that makes sense. If you're given a description of this book, it's a book about a boy and his father. There's nothing to really want to make you pick it up from the library and take it home as a kid. At least that was my experience. Thinking about the premise of the book, at least. But I have now read it as an adult, and here I am with my thoughts. So, like I said, it's not one of Roald Dahl's more memorable books, but it's a pleasant enough read. The prose is very readable, the conversations between the characters are interesting. There are a few funny moments here and there. It's not maybe the funniest Roald Dahl book, maybe not the most imaginative Roald Dahl book, but it's pleasant enough. I'd recommend it if you happen across it. It's not a must-read, but it's a pleasant read. So according to Wikipedia, this book originally started life as a short story which Roald Dahl had written for adults. I'm sure many of you on BookTube know that in addition to being a children's author, Roald Dahl wrote a number of stories for adults, and I guess this must have been one of them. I've not read that short story, but yeah, that short story got expanded and adapted into this book. And reading this book, you can see how this could have easily originated as a short story. The actual story itself is very thin. What stretches this out to book length, and this is a little over 200 pages in this edition, with illustrations, but decent sized print. Anyways, what stretches this out to book length is a lot of the conversations that the characters have with each other, a few pointless little digressions, but that's not a criticism. Necessarily. It's all quite readable. So the central story, minor spoilers here I guess, is that Danny lives alone with his father, and he finds out that his father is a poacher. And I guess this is where the charm of the book comes in. Once Danny finds out that his father's a poacher and that his father doesn't do it because they're starving. His father just does it for the fun of the game. And his father describes to Danny the great excitement of poaching. And it turns out that most of the people in this little village in rural England engage in the great game of poaching. And once Danny gets into this world, he finds out not only his father, but a lot of his father's friends, the local people, the doctor, the vicar, the policeman, are all kind of in on this, and they all regard it as a great sport, poaching. And I'm not sure how much of this is drawn from real life. There's an interview with Roald Dahl at the back of the book in which he said that he got a lot of the inspiration for the setting of this book from the rural countryside England, which he was currently living in when he wrote it. And I think you can definitely see that love of rural England in this book. But aside from the landscapes, I'm not sure how much of the custom or the habit of poaching was drawn from real life, but it's quite humorously depicted in the book. They talk about all the tricks, they debate techniques. They even talk about a thing called poacher's bottom, which is when you're running away after poaching and you get shot in the bottom with a buckshot from one of the keepers. The keepers are guarding the wild birds in the forest. They describe it as something that's very common that happens to all poachers, where they get their bottom shut up with buckshot, and then they have to get the buckshot removed by their wives or something, and then they end up with these bottoms which are just speckled with white scars, which they refer to as poacher's bottom. And it just, in addition to just the physical imagery of it just seeming so absurd and something inherently funny about somebody getting shot in the bottom, it's just funny that this is such a way of life to them that they've even developed these terminologies for it, like, tennis elbow, poacher's bottom. These parts of the book had me kind of chuckling as you read about the culture of poaching as is depicted in this book. And again, whether that's true to real life or not, I'm not sure. If anybody knows anything, let me know in the comments. I'd be curious about it. Without getting into spoilers about how the plot of poaching evolves, I'll just say that it's a pleasant little story. Also notable is Danny is living with his dad, and his dad is telling Danny stories about a big friendly giant, the BFG, which happens in chapter 2, takes up maybe 5 pages, and then doesn't reoccur again for the rest of the book. But this was the origin for the BFG, the big friendly giant, which Roald Dahl would later expand into a whole book. Now, I've reviewed the big friendly giant on this channel before, and I mentioned I was a huge fan of it in childhood, and had no idea that character originated from this book. It's a little bit different, slightly different in some of the details as it's presented here. But yeah, this is the origin of the idea for the Big Friendly Giant book. The book starts out with Danny and his dad, and being a Roald Dahl book, you're kind of expecting his dad to be like cruel and vindictive and stupid and ugly, and Danny will have to find ways to outwit his dad, because that's quite often how these Roald Dahl books are set up, right? There's a bad adult, and then there's a kid who has to outsmart the adult. But instead, we find a very loving portrait of Danny and his dad, and Danny talks very affectionately about how much he loved his dad, how much he loved spending time with his dad, it's maybe a little bit of an unrealistic picture of the type of relationship that a parent and a child can expect to have together, but it is something that makes you a little bit sentimental, maybe. As I was reading this book, I was thinking to myself, I should put this book down and spend some more time with my kids. play with them some more, or make more time for them. I mean, you know what it's like as a parent. It's sometimes a struggle to get some me time, some time for yourself. But then when you're reading this book, you're like, well, actually, I should forget about the me time and go spend some more time with my kids. Anyways, the stupid, mean, ugly adults do come in this book. There's two of them. One is Victor Harris, who figures prominently in the book. And the other one is, am I remembering the names right? The other is his teacher, Captain something, who is a little bit superfluous to this book. So Danny gets his hand whacked by his teacher, Captain something. His dad gets really mad about it, but it doesn't really go anywhere. The teacher doesn't get any comeuppance or something like that. It's just, it's just a Roald Dahl book, so we have some mean and vindictive adults that have to make the children's lives miserable. According to Wikipedia, Roald Dahl based that character off of a teacher he had, and the pain that Danny describes getting his hand whacked by the teacher's ruler was drawn from Roald Dahl's real life experience at school. So a little bit superfluous to the book, but interesting little detail. And like I said before, there's a lot of little superfluous stuff in this book which helps to make it out to book length. So I think I'm going to wrap things up here. I know this is a little bit shorter than I normally do. I normally ramble on for 20-30 minutes about a book. But I don't think I've got that much more to say about this. It was a pleasant read, maybe not the most memorable Roald Dahl book, but it had some moments, and it was an easy and pleasant read. And I'll leave it at that.